Okay, guys, welcome back. Let's complete this example on J option pane instead of calling it dialog boxes today, and then do a small class definition today. So we are doing an application. If you recollect, we are writing a main method and kind of writing whatever we need inside that method. So I'll finish it off. I did introduce you to the J option pane class. I'll show you how to use it today, and then we'll go on to write our first small class, a class that you can understand. So we'll start small and then do a couple of simple examples and then go on to complicated examples. So your assignment 1 will have to wait, unfortunately, just because you guys are not ready for it. Okay, so I don't know, maybe by the end of today's class or who knows, next week, I don't know, like everything has changed. I have to change my own schedule of what I need to teach. So having said that, we'll finish of this. Anything it's not clear in this example till date, just ask and I'll clarify that. Otherwise, I'll kind of take it forward. I don't know why you did it for my class. Before me, any idea? Did you have a class here before me? Were you in this class before me? Somebody is not telling me where they should. It's R for sure because it says create and delete and everything. It's all SQL, but maybe. Okay, so the aim in Java, 2 things. 1, you should learn how to use the classes in Java. That's one thing that you have to learn. And 2, to write your own classes in Java. And of course, once you do that, then once you write your own classes, you'll have to learn how to use them, how to do object or interaction and so on. So let's finish this off. If you remember, if you recall, we had talked about the scanner class. And you had created an object of the scanner class by the help of which you were reading input from the user. We were showing our output on our terminals and we were using the system.out object to do that and using the println method, right? We had called another method from main, and there was a question last week. I'm not sure if this was the section that said, can I keep calling one method from the other? Can main call main2 and main2 again call main? Remember, we don't go into recursive. You can do that. You don't go into recursive loops, right? It can't happen. It's not recursive. It's basically a infinite loop. Recursion is allowed in Java. Recursion is allowed, and if time permits, I'll see if we can get there and do it. I don't know how it will go. For now, I don't know. So maybe it was the other section, but I think it was this section. Somebody from this section had asked, right? So yes, main can call main2, but if you start calling main in main2, then it's an infinite loop, and that's not allowed. But recursion, which is a different animal altogether, that's allowed in Java, and I'll show you when it comes. Okay, so we had kind of was just create an object. Oh, that's all we did, right? And so we have an object of type J option pane. J option pane belongs to the javax.swing package. Remember, the swing package, the classes are inheriting from AWT. So Java had AWT to start with, abstract window toolkit to start with for GUI. They made it a little easier and added more in swings. And then from swings, they went to javax effects, right? Special effects. And then now we have a GUI, which is kind of, you can use it on any of the platforms. Doesn't matter whether it's Eclipse or NetBeans or whatever, which is called the scene builder, which converts code into the same code for all machines, right? So if we get there, sure. If we don't, you'll definitely do it in your Java. Okay, so now let's try to use this J option pane. So till date, we had used the scanner object called input to read input from the user and save it in a variable called name. And I just printed hello name on this. Now, if instead of taking input from the keyboard, I mean, you still have to take it from the keyboard, but in your small input window or output window, it is actually the small window that you take it in. If you want to make it a little more prettier, I would say, right? Prettier, not easier, but a little more prettier, we can use this class called J option pane, which comes from, as I said, javax.swing package. Okay, so if you would like to keep that open on the site, just so that if we have to keep going back to that class, we can refer to it. So that's the best way to learn, right? See that you always have help. Of course, help also comes in NetBeans, but you always have the class open. The class that you're using, you always have it open so that you can keep referring it to see what methods does it have, what method does what, how do I invoke it, what does it return, and so on. So So it will help you. So let's go for Java 8 documentation. And open up. And we are looking for the J option pane class. Right, so there it is. Look at its hierarchical nature. It's the J option pane is this package. This class is inheriting from J component, which is inheriting from container, which is further inheriting from component, which of course at every hierarchy at the head sits object, right? So notice the hierarchy and notice how AWT are being used. So swings, they are inheriting everything from AWT. They just more was added. So what is inheritance? You take a class, all its methods and non-private data can be inherited by another subclass, and it has everything plus it can add more to it. So though it's called a subclass, a child, the child will almost have more than the parent, right? That's how inheritance works. So I mean, if you understand it good, so keep that in mind. Okay, so now let's start using it. So to use a class, definitely you will have to look at its definition, look at the constructors that are available, look at its fields that are available, and definitely look at the methods that are available. So the first thing that you need to know is how do I create a J option pane object, right? So for that, what is the special method that you always use when you create objects is the constructor. So look at the long list of constructors for J option pane. The easiest being the first one with no parameters. Then you can give a message and then so on and so forth. There are many ways of doing it. Okay, that's one way. If I wanted to create an object, if I am only working with static methods, that is methods that belong to a class, to create an object of the class. I don't have to, because if I'm using all static methods, which actually that's all I need today, then I don't even need to create an object. But if I needed to create an object, I hope you know how we do it. For every, it's universal. Anytime you have to create an object, you can do it in the same line if you like, or on different lines. You go new, you call the constructor, so the same name as the name of the class, and then you of course use a valid constructor. So we saw one that had no parameters. We saw one, so we can use that. So it will depend on which constructor do I need to use, what am I trying to do. So you will always have to look at the constructor and say, this will work for me, oh, this won't work for me, I need this one. So I won't need the object as per se today, just because all the methods that I'm going to use are class methods, and class methods are used with class names, right? But this is how you create an object. So keep in mind, an object is a real entity representing the class. The class is just a definition. You can think of a class as a blueprint. So it's there for reference, right? So it's just a definition. When you want to work with the class, you will have to create objects of that class. You always call the constructor. So you go new and then you call the constructor. So think of as if there is a blueprint of a car, right? There is a blueprint of a car. So Honda has a blueprint, and every time you want to buy a particular make, they kind of look at the blueprint and the car is manufactured. Look at the blueprint and the car is manufactured. Under the blueprint, of course, the object that is created is different. But as long as you are using the same blueprint, all objects will have the same characteristics, the same attributes. So again, a class has data and a class has methods. Okay, so this is how I look, or this is what I need to work with, and this is what I can do. Keep that in mind. A class is just a definition, the attributes or the fields, and defining the methods. Okay. Okay, so having said that, let's see now how to use this J option class. So instead of reading the input from the user using this scanner object, I would like to read it using the J option class, right? So I have a message here which says, what is your name? And then I read it. Can I replace it by using the J option pane class? So how do I do that? So to your variable name, I'll still use the same variable because that's what I have to assign. So you'll say, okay, what do I use now? So you can start trying, but of course, trying only helps if you know what you're looking for. So here are all the constants with it, and the methods and everything will be listed here. Because I've used it before, I know it's something to do, it's called show. Now, if I've got the shows, because you can kind of look at it together. Notice how it says show input dialog. So it makes sense. dialog box, right? Show confirm dialog, trying to show a confirmation dialog box where it says, do you want to continue? Yes, no, cancel kind of stuff. Input dialog when you want to read input. If you would like to show a message, there is a show message dialog just to show something on the screen. So having said that, show input is something that will work for us. See, it says show input dialog, only a message is required. Message means what are you asking, right? Another one, it says, okay, I have another one which says, what is the component in which your dialog box will appear? And then what is the message you want to show? So I can use either. Now, do I have any other component that I'm using? No, I don't have a frame or a window. My default component is my screen, right? So the JRE has a default window coming up, and that's the component. So I can use either the first one or the second one. When you see methods with the same name, but different parameters in the class definition, it is said that the methods are overloaded. Name is the same, the loading is different, right? So one needs one parameter, sometimes you don't need a parameter. Sometimes you may need two parameters, but they may be of different type. So if the order, the sequence, or the number of parameters is different, then they are different methods. So it's called an overloaded method, and the use is, you don't have to think of new names. They're all doing the same job, reading input from the user. So they called it show input dialog. They could have called it show input dialog 1, show input dialog 2, but you know what? If it is allowed, the name can be the same. Any method names can be same. Two methods can have the same name as long as they are different in their parameter list. And that difference can come either in the number of parameters or in the type of parameters. As long as that is, and why do you use overloaded methods? So that the names are same and it makes sense. So I could use either one or two. For the one that is highlighted, I could use the second one, even that will do. So either one will do. So I'm going to use this second one just because I want to show you what will I name. So it says I need a component here. I'll say null. There is no component. I'm using my default window. And second, it said, what is the message you want to give in your input dialog box? And the message is, what is your name? Right? So now let's see how it appears. How it appears on these, what doesn't it like? Oh, semicolon missing. So I've just used, so show input dialog is a static method of the class. So you use it with the class name, right? I don't need to use it with the object name. So you use it with the class name. So J option pane is the name of the class, dot. You will see that static methods appear in italics in NetBeans, also in Eclipse, I think, right? In Eclipse also. So they appear in italics. So it says it's a class method. Class dot name of the method, then comes the parameter list. So the null is simply saying that I don't have any other component, I don't have a frame, or I don't have another component in which I want to show my dialog box. Choose the default, and the default is your window, right? The GRE's window. So therefore you say null. Okay, so that, let's see what happens. What happens when I do this? Just run it. Run your code. Do I have an error somewhere? No, it just takes time. There. Oh, where were you? There you are. There it is. That's the result of using the J option pane class. So that what you see here is an object of J option pane. And I was calling it message dialog box all the time. You call it in C#, right? So notice a few things by default. There is a title bar which says input. If that's all you want, it's good. If you want to change this title, then you'll have to use another overloaded method, something else, some other signature. Suppose here I wanted to say something like input name, or please input, or provide input. I could change it. I can do that. Do you see this icon here with the question mark? For information, you can change this also, right? There is a way of changing this also. You see an OK and cancel button. I mean, in input, what do? You either give input and say OK, or you cancel it. And then you see a box. This is your message that you give. What is your name? So without a message, it's kind of, a dialog box has no sense. So there was always that message parameter in your show input dialog. And then here is your box in which you will give your input. So let me give my name. And after that, if you remember, I said, show that name, hello, show that name. Notice it appears here, hello Anju Chawla. There, job done. I've replaced the scanner object by a J option pane object. So what did I do? Instead of using the scanner class, I used the G option pane class. So scanner class has its own properties, its own uses. With a scanner class, you can connect your keyboard to your input and you can give your input through keyboard. With a J option pane class, you can make a dialog box appear on the screen and it has options. You can change the title, you can change the icon. I'll show you how to do that. But in its simplest form, it will put input in the title. It will put an information because input is usually asking for information. So that's its default required from the user. And then if you were creating a GUI, like a graphical user interface, you could be placing this dialog box maybe inside another component, right? Or another container as they are called. So container can contain other components. And therefore I've given it null because I'm just using the JRE's window. So it works. Let's see how can I change it. So now if I can show something on the window, can I also show something on in a dialog box? Instead of showing it in the output window, can I show it in a dialog box, right? So let's try that. So I'm again going to use the J option pane class. I'm going to say show, and I know it starts with a message. So notice now I have what? I have a show message dialog. I have again this method is overloaded. Notice there are three ways in which I can use this method. I can say where do you want to show the message and what is the message you want to show. Make sense? The second one says where do you want to show it? What do you want to say in the message and what is the title and so on. So there are more options. Let's use the easiest one. Okay, so what do you want? Okay, so what do you want to show? What is your component window? Null. And what do you want to show? You want to, if you want to say hello Anju, like we were saying hello Anju, I can do it like this. I can put my message right here, though there are better ways of doing it, and I will in a minute. My string right here. I'll improve that. That's a string. It was expecting, remember, it was expecting a message. And again, you don't have to memorize any of these. If you go here and you kind of go to its methods, they will all be here. So I'm using this one. Show message dialog, show message dialog, show. There it is. I'm using this one. Click on it. See, it says it is a static method. Read the signatures. It's a public method, so of course it can be used outside the class definition. It is static, so will be used with the class name. Returns nothing, so you don't have to assign it to anything. You shouldn't be assigning it to anything. So there are two options in Java. If it returns something and you don't assign it to a variable, the return value is lost, but it won't complain. If it doesn't return anything, then you cannot assign it to anything. You can't say, oh, I'll assign it, though it's not returning anything. If something comes back, only then can you catch it. If nothing comes back, how can you catch it, right? So Java says if the return type is void, you cannot do this. That means you cannot assign it to a variable. I'm just kind of writing it right here, just for the heck of it. See, I have an error. It says, how are you assigning it to a string variable? This method does not return a value. So that's what it means. So if the return type is void, you cannot assign it to a variable. On the other hand, this method show input dialog returns a string. So I have assigned it to a string variable. If I don't do it, it won't complain. It says, oh, if you don't want to save it, that's your problem. Don't save it if you don't want. I'm giving something back to you. If you don't want to save it in a box, that's up to you. It's gone in the air. So how will I print it? I cannot. And therefore it says name doesn't have a value. Might not have been initialized. So you have to know where do I assign, where do I use an assignment statement, where I don't use an assignment statement. If method returns you something, you have to catch it. So you need assignment. If a method doesn't return you anything, what are you catching? Nothing. Okay, right? So now let's see, will it put this on the screen? Hello name. Now it was appearing here. My screen is very small, but you can see it on your screens that it says hello Anju here, right? Let's try it. Let's try running it again. And it says, what is your name? You can give anything, like anything in that box, as much as you want, right? And say, okay. And now that appears on the screen. Prettier output, prettier input, prettier output. That's the use of GUI components. That's what GUI is for, right? It makes it more, of course, it makes it more interactive also. It's easy for users to use because we are used to a GUI world, but it's also attractive to look at. Right? Now again, notice a few things. Notice by default, it has a title. Message. By default, it has an icon. information. There it was a question mark. Here it is I for information. There it was asking a question. Here it is showing you information. And there is an OK button, which is what you would require in an output box. Right? Now let's try a few more things. Right? So now you'll say, let's try a few more things. In this one, if I wanted to change the title, so I have two things here. I have a component and I have a question. Suppose I wanted to change that input title from input to something else, like give your input or provide input, just for the heck of it. Input is not bad, but you could make the message better. You'll say, oh, what do I do? How do I give it? No big deal. Go back to your help. Go to the method show input dialog and see if there is something else you can use. So this is the one I was using, right? With 2 parameters. Let's go down. Here there is one with 3 parameters where it says initial selection value, the value used to initialize the input field. Sometimes you would like to show a default value in your input bar. You can do it through this. So there is an option. So suppose you were asking, please input your semester number. And by default, you put 1 there. So if the user is 1, he doesn't have to input anything. If he wants to change it, then it is changed. So that's what the selection value comes for. Okay, let's look at more. That's not what I want. Let's look at more. Okay, here is one that will help. There is a component, which is null for me. There is an object message, which for us is a string. It can be, when you say object, remember everything is an object. So I was using a string. Then there is a title that needs to be a string. And then there is a message type of type int. Now, what is this message type? Let's come down. Here is the help. It says the type of message that is to be displayed. And they've given you some constants here. How do I know they're constants? They're all in uppercase. So if we all follow conventions, we all understand conventions. So all those are constants. So they have a value. It says int here, but here it's all caps. So what's the confusion? Remember, these are integer constants. So that tells me these are integer constants. So you can use a value 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 if you like, if you can remember that, which is tough. Or you can use something like question message, plain message, warning message. You can just use the name of the constant. And so constants are very useful in programming. Always try to use named constants. They're called named because they have a name. Whenever you need in your code. For example, you're writing a program and where you're using the value 0.13, your tax, at many places in your code. 0.13, wherever you want to use it in your code. Does it make sense to somebody else who's reading your code? No. But if you now make a constant called tax rate, for example, and give it a value 0.13, and use tax rate throughout your code, makes more sense. 2, the second advantage, if I want to change this tax rate from 13% to 15%, I make the change only at one place, in the named constant, where I initialize it. Do you know how to declare constants in Java? You just go final, they are constants. You put the reserved word final in front. Right? So you go final int, and then whatever you want to assign. And they cannot be changed. That's how they're different from variables. If you want to make it a class constant, put static final and then the constant. Right? So these are all the constants that are available. Let's try to use that. Let's try to use this constructor now. So I need 1, 2, 3, 4 components, 4 parameters, title and message type. Okay, let's try it. All you have to do is learn how to use it. So the third was title. What would you like to give as your title? By default, the title is input. Let's say, please input, just for the heck of it. And to be more, of course, polite, right? To be more polite. So please input. So my title will change. You'll say, okay, that's okay. I don't want anything else, but you can't. You have to exactly use what is available. So it says I need a 4th parameter. There was nothing which says I only need 3 parameters where you can change the title. So if you have to change the title, you have to change that icon. You'll say, oh, I want to keep it the same. I like the information one. Use the information one. Who says you can't use it? But if you want to change it, sure. So what was the name of that? Go back, go back so that you have it. It was called information message. So let's pick this up just so that I don't have to type it, right? Go back here and put it as your 4th parameter. Oh, since it's a constant, it's a static constant, it's a class constant. That's how you'll have to write it. Okay, there it is, information message. So if you know them, you can start typing, okay? So what have I done? I've used another overloaded show input dialog method. This method requires 4 parameters. Parent component, the message, the title, and that icon. If you don't like that icon, you can say plain message and no icon will appear. If you want to put a question mark, go with question message. If you want to say information, go with information. So you're asking a question, so information is not the course, but I'm just showing you how it will work, right? Try it again now. See what will change. Notice input has changed to please input, title has changed. And the question mark has changed to information. But that's not the right icon, but this is to show you that that's how you change it. If you want to keep the same old one, there it is, question message. It's called question message. But it is required. You have to give the fourth parameter. You can't change. You can't say, oh, I don't want to change it, so why should I give it? You have to give it. Now question mark will appear. See? What isn't it like? Oh, okay. What was I doing something? Yeah, there it is. Because I couldn't see the run, I said something is going on behind the scenes. Okay, now let's try it again. There, see, back to question mark. So these are the constants that are available, and the names are not bad. See how good their names are: information message, question message, plain message. And that's exactly what I reiterate whenever I tell you to name a variable. I say, name your classes and your methods and your variables and constants, give them a meaningful name so that they make sense, right? Yes.
The Mac pictures don't change.
The Mac pictures don't change? Okay. All remain the same? No. You don't have it.
The Java symbol.
Oh my God. Okay. I don't know. Good, I don't have a Mac, but they're supposed to change, right? That's the whole idea of using the fourth parameter. Okay. So there you have your answer.
When you compile your entire program deploy it, then it'll
But the common poor programmer cannot see it. The programmer who's doing it, right? He should be able to see it too.
right now it's talking about the IDE.
Okay. Oh, it's the IDE that is.
It'll run the same in NetBeans, IntelliJ, or Eclipse.
But it will never change
when you actually output it in the program.
Okay. Okay. So there you have your answer. So here, what has changed? The message has changed and the icon has changed. And again, I mean, the rest doesn't change because I kind of just do that. Make sense? So which method to use? You have to kind of choose the method you want according to your needs, right? So if I say I want to see a different title bar, change it. And if you change that, you will have to change the icon or change or at least retype the icon. There it is. That's what show input dialog does. That's all it does. Similarly with output. See, with output also, I had a few options. Show message dialog. There it is. So we have a show message dialog. I'm using this one, the simplest one, right? I'm using this one. There is a one which says you can change the title and you can change the message type. Same thing. So if you wanted to change, what was it saying right now? Message. I think it says message right now. If you want to say output or whatever, you can change it. Right? So these are called overloaded methods. Oh, there is an option of an icon also. There is an icon to display in the dialog that helps the user identify the kind of message that is being displayed. Okay, so on top of it, you can also give an icon. Icon is just another, it belongs to the icon class, if you see, and you can use an image. You can use an image and show it on here. So you can say plain message, remove the images that they have and put in your own image. So maybe that way we'll be safe with Mac users. Use icons, right? Then you can go wrong. So do you understand the use of the two methods that I've used? Both of them are static methods. One is to take input, one is to show output, and there is a confirm dialog also. If you wanted to use that, you could use that too. It will have yes, no, cancel options and so on. Okay. Now, so that looks okay. That's not bad at all. But suppose I wanted to take a number from the user. That means not only take a number, you can always take numbers as strings also, but I want to use a number. Like suppose I want to ask for two numbers from you and add them. I want to do math with them. So now if you look at the show input dialog method, and if you go back and look at the show input dialog method, what do you notice its return type is? Let's see. It always says that whatever you give as your input will always be assumed to be a string. So now if I wanted to take some numeric input, it could be integers, it could be floating, but any numeric input, What do you think I can do? What do I do? It will be assumed to be a string. So how do I convert it from a string to a number? Parse methods are available, right? There are classes in Java. All wrapper classes have parse methods. So float has a parse, double has a parse, int has a parse. Every one of them has a parse. Let's take something simple so that we can kind of show it, so that you can understand what it is. Okay. So now suppose I want to take an integer variable. Because it's the easiest, that's why I'm doing it. Okay. Oops. Let's take age, though I may not be doing any math with it. Oh, okay. Let's take an int age, right? So it's a number, it's a whole number. I'm not going to do any math with it, but I'm just trying to show you how I'll work with it. Okay, so I ask the name, I say hello, and then maybe I ask the person's age. And again, I'll use the smaller ones just so that you can see the difference. Okay, so I'll put it in age, which is an int, and I'll say, what is your age? Doesn't like it. Why? Because the right hand side is returning a string and you are putting it in an int variable. Right? Age is an int variable, right hand side is returning a string. So since I heard some parses going on and I know it is an integer, I'm going to use my integer dot, please not capital, parse int. Method for it. Okay, what do I say now? I say read the input from the user. You could have done it in a string variable and then converted it, but you can always nest your calls. I'm nesting them. Parse int is has an input, but that input is calling another method as it's calling the show input dialog. So what will it do? The innermost happens first. It will take something from the user, it will pass it as an integer, and after it converts it into an integer, it will put it in the age variable. Now keep in mind that if you do not give an input as an integer, you still say Anju. What is your age, Anju? Of course, it's going to blow up because it cannot convert Anju into an int. So we'll learn how to take care of that. It's just exception handling, but for now we'll assume we'll follow instructions. But a user never follows instruction. You all know that, right? You're good at that. Never follow instructions. So when you write code, when you code, always keep in mind that the user is not going to follow instructions. So always do defense program. So ensure that your program cannot be broken. Your code is perfect as much as you can. So always try to do that, and we'll learn how to do exception handling. Okay. Now with this age, I can do math if I want. I can say if age is something, you do this. If age is, I can do things like this. Okay, so let's try that. You're all aware of your if statements. Okay, let's do some math with it, since it is an integer. So I'll say if age is greater than, what should we call old? 40, right? And I'm not going to print out something. I'm going to take a variable called message, which will be a string variable, and I'll kind of format it. Have you done string.format? Have you heard of this method called format of the string class? It's like printf, system.out. Have you used printfs in system.out.println where you format? You can actually format your strings the same way. Okay, I'll show you how it does. Now, I don't like declaring my variables on the fly, means when I use them, so I'll use it here. With local variables, you can kind of go message here too. Though when you write class definitions, it's usually in Java, you put it on a different line. These are just local variables. Okay, so I'm going to format my string. This is how you format it, same way as you do printf. Okay, what would you like to say? You are, and we'll show the age by a %d, right? You are, whatever is the value of the age. Oh, that's old. No offense for anybody. I'm more than 40, so it's for all of us, okay? For whoever. Okay, so you are whatever. Oh, that's old, and we will replace the value age here. That seems familiar. It's like as if you were writing a system.out.printf. You give your whatever you want to give your text in double quotes, and then you give the variables that you want to be replaced. Same kind of concept. Same concept. So this method is called the format method of the string class. It's formatting your code. Make sense? Right? You have a string. and you're putting data into it and values of variables into it. But instead of using the plus as we do in normal printlns, I formatted it. So what will it do? It will replace this value wherever it will see a format specifier. It will replace it with this age. There's where the problem is. There, semicolon missing. Right? So I put it in a message variable instead of kind of writing two J option panes. I'll make it easy. I'll put it in a message and then put it together. Else, we'll take the same message. Of course, I'll change the message. And here I'll say, oh, you are this. Oh, that's young. Okay. I've done a little math with it. I couldn't have done this math with age. All of you are familiar with if else statements. Are we all okay with if else's? If checks a condition, condition can be simple, condition can be compound. And all I've done is if it is more than 40, I've saved again. Now, just to show you, just for the heck of it, I'll take this 40 value and put a constant here. I don't know what to call it. Check age. I'm taking this variable called check age. It's a constant just to show you so that it comes back to you. Declare it as a constant here. How do you declare constants? Final. It's an int. It is called whatever, and it's 40. There it is. That's how you declare constants, right? You use the reserved word final. Now I'm using it locally. I'm inside main, so I don't put static with it. Local variables don't have the concept of static at all. But I'll show you maybe somewhere else where you can put static. Right? So what the use of this, if I need to make a change, the change is only done at one place, and you can use this check age as many times as you want in code without changing it at 10 places. I know it's not difficult. You can always say copy paste. You can always do a control F and find it, but that's not how you program. You program like a programmer. Okay, so you think what is the best way of doing it? So using a named constant is a better way of using data which you think is a constant instead of using it at 10 places in your code. That's how you do it. Okay. So now once I have it, I'm going to show this message again. And I'll use the J option pane again. But instead of saying hello here, see now this is another way. You can put your messages. I mean, you can create your strings and then just put the string variable name. Makes it neater. And it will also be useful in a minute when I show you how to write a helper. So it will say either you are this, oh, that's old, or you will say you are this, oh, that's young. One of these, definitely one of these, depending upon the age you give. Right? And again, if in this J option pane you want to use the other one where the titles are changing, where the icon is changing, go ahead and use it. It's you. It's how you decide what you want to do. The only thing is you have to understand what you're doing. That's important, right? So that you know, oh, that's what she wants, that's all I change. Or she doesn't want a title, I don't need to use this method. You know what I mean? Like you should just know how to use it. Okay, so let's try that now. Let's try it. So let's give name. Let's give your age. You could have asked questions together. And it exactly says what it has to say.
You follow along the program.
Sorry, I did what?
You follow along the program and just take on to see it go off the screen.
Oh, does it? Oh, okay. So I can only do that if I make my font size a little small. Is that?
There's an option here.
Or in the for the projector or something, or here? Tools? Options? Oh, you're trying to tell me that it's what can you see?
It's going off the screen, so you want it to wrap.
Oh, okay.
It's usually called soft
something
wrap.
like, yeah, something wrap. Maybe in options, let's see. Could be a projector one also. Appearance, maybe? No. Edits, no. What else could be miscellaneous? I don't know. Ignore leading and trailing, ignore changes, ignore. Output. Terminal. Wrap lines, it says. Editor?
Formatting.
Formatting, okay.
Yeah. And then you should see soft wrap.
Soft wrap. Category use all languages.
Line wrap.
Yeah, but it's grayed out. Oh, off. I can do nothing with it.
Use all language setting up there.
Languages?
Below.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Line wrap. After words, maybe it was okay or any, okay.
Anywhere with the one.
Anywhere is what I want.
Afterwards. It's after.
Afterwards is better because otherwise we'll break words. Ah, okay. So you will see something like this untidy, but that's okay. If you can live with that. Yeah, it's better at least you see the whole thing. Yeah, makes sense. Okay. Oh, yeah, it's just saying I'm wrapping. So things could be, I mean, as silly as this. Oh, so where is the closing bracket? Oh, because I'm on a little of the Okay, so if you can live with those untidy returns, I'm okay. I don't like it, but that's fine. It's more important that you like it. Okay, okay, so there. So it runs. Remember, it did give the message. Right, so it's as easy as just going through the class documentation, seeing what the methods are called, looking at what parameters they need, and looking at what they return and how to use it. So it's no rocket science, right? It's not rocket science at all. All you have to do is go and first Google, this is what I want to do in Java. Then it will give you hints, use this class. Go to the class definition, look at methods, and so on and so forth. So learn how to use classes in Java. That's your first job. Okay. Now, before I leave this and start class definition, I would like to write a small helper method here to show you their use, though you've seen main too. We already know that, guys, the class as such is a big class. Shh. Can't disturb me. There are so many of you because if you talk, then I can't concentrate. So I'll write a helper method here. I mean, you've already seen main too. Let's say display. Is display a reserved word? Seems like, okay. I'm going to write, so just to show you, because this is a new method I'm writing, I'll put Java doc comments here. This method displays a message on the screen. Right? Does it take any parameters? No. Does it return anything? It will take a parameter, the message to display. So let's go string. Let's go message. When you write a method, you don't have to worry, oh, is message being used somewhere else? No, you're writing an independent method. Write it completely. So give it signatures, see what parameters it requires. So I need a param, the message to be printed. So it is called message. You can say a string for the message to be printed. You don't have to mention the type, but some people do, to be displayed, not printed. And it has to be called @param. There is no return type. Why am I writing this helper method? Because you have to get into the habit of writing methods, right? A method does a job. So this method is basically going to print a message on the screen. That's all it is going to do. So don't worry about from where it will be called. Just write a method to print a message using a dialog box on the screen. That's all you have to do, right? So let's create, because I don't need a method, I'm okay using this, option pane dot show message dialog box. And you have to, I mean, depending upon what you want to do. There, your method is complete. O is missing. Thank you. There. So when you're told to write a method, don't think about anything else. Where is it being called? How will it be? You write the method. So I've said write a method to show us message in a dialog box on your screen. That's all you need. You can add a title if you want. You can add icons. That's different. But this is the simplest one, right? Now, whenever I need to call it, I'll just call the method and pass it the message. So wherever you are doing your option panes displaying, so you have a helper method. These are called helper methods. Remember, helper methods are also static because main is a static method and a static method can only call static methods, because static means object is not created, right? So if the object is not created and main is only that is living and it wants to call other methods and those other methods are not static. How will it call it? Cannot, because they don't exist. There is no object. So it's kind of a rule. You can get around it. I'll show you how you can get around it. But usually in an application, all the methods are static. And even we don't even need them to be public. Why? Because who's using it? I'm using it in an application where main is available and main is using it. Who will use an application from outside? Like you use class methods from outside the class, but this is not a class. This is just a executable program, right? So you make it private. Nobody else uses it. So now where do you think I can use this display message? Anytime you've done displaying here, use it, call that message display. It's not returning anything. Was called display message. Control space bar there, right? And what would you like to pass? So see here, now it will come handy. I can use this message variable, the local message variable, say hello name inside it. Therefore, it's always a good idea to kind of put it in a variable and then use it. And there, right? I am again doing some displaying forward. So just kind of complete this. So what have I done? I put it in a variable because it's just easy. I could have written hello name right here, but makes it untidy. Put it in a string variable, pass the string variable. So it's always handy to put and because the second is you can format it if you like. There's nothing to format here, but if I had numbers, floating point numbers, which I wanted to show with 2 places of decimal and so on, I would format it. Okay, so call it here. And you can again call it where? You can again call it here. You'll say, what's the big deal? I mean, it's one line of code. Can't you write it? Yeah, I can write it, but let's learn how to write methods. A method does a job. And so if you have to write the same line 10 times, why not write it once in the code and call it? You'll say, but you're calling it. Those are 10 lines again. But that's what programming says. Make jobs, delegate, and then call. Right? Delegate and then call. So call it here also. And then pass on your message. There. Right? So you write helper methods as and when required. That's the use of method. A method does a job and can be invoked as many number of times as you like with different parameters, with different arguments. The values that you pass are called arguments. Right? So it will do the same job. But what have I done? I have kind of organized my class. Right? I've organized my methods. Main does this, display message does this. Something else will do something else, another method does something else. And they all help each other. So you're just trying to make it more organized. And the organization just occurred from here. I created a helper method. They are usually called helper methods. They're helping main. And then wherever I need them, I call them. I can call them 40 times if I want. Now, if you wanted a different title and a different icon or a different picture in all of them or whatever, then you will pass those also as parameters. Pass the title also as parameter. Then change it here. But you have a general method now which is displaying something on the screen using a dialog box. Right? So you can start from scratch. You can build something and make it work, and then improve it and improve it and improve it. And you can do it till nth degree. There's no dearth of improving programs. Right? Clear? And it will run the same way. There's no difference. You won't see the difference. The user doesn't see the difference, but the programmer has organized his or her work. And of course, it will blow up if I give a number, not a number in your what is your age. And you will have a very untidy error message. But again, you have to learn how to read error messages because that's how you learn programming. That's how you learn your mistakes. So kind of go bottom to top. So it says there is a problem at Java 45 line number. This is being caused from the integer class from the package at line number 16. So what? I'm not going to go and look into these. So for me, the problem is in my name at this point. Right? And go and kind of look at what it is. It tells you it's a number format exception. A number format exception says the number is not in a number format. You're saying it will be a number, integer or real doesn't matter, but it's not in the format. And it was not. A is not a number. A is not in the right format. And that's what it is trying to say. We will learn how to write our own exceptions. No user of your program wants to see this. Yeah, pretty message would do. You have not given your name you have not given your age in the proper format. That would do. And I'll show you how to create your own error messages in a pretty way. Nobody would like this. So if a user makes a mistake, which of course they will always make, a message should come up which tells him or her what is wrong. And then if you want to resume the program, good. If you want to stop the program, good. You decide what you want to do. Would you like to ask again? You'll put it in a loop. Or would you say, you know what, you're too foolish. Don't you know your age cannot be AA? And you stop. So you make the decision as a programmer as to will the program terminate or will the program ask again. Right? So that's another thing. But you will learn how not to show your users this, but a much prettier answer, error message. Okay? And we'll learn maybe in another week or so. It is towards the end of your course, but you can't work without exception handling. So I'll start incorporating it right next week. Okay? Are we okay with this code? Are we all comfortable with what we've done till date? Any questions at all? Good. So let's try our next project now. Right? Let's create a new one. Okay. And in that new one, I'll kind of go a step ahead and use the object-oriented nature of Java. So I'll try to create my own class. So here you've used the string class. Here you've used the scanner class. You've also used the JOptionPane class. You've used some methods that were static. You've used some methods that were not static. Right? With the scanner, you had used a non-static method. With JOptionPane, both your methods were static methods. So who decides which method is static and which method is non-static? The nature of the method. You're taking input from the user. It's a static method. It belongs to every object. You don't have to make like it doesn't belong to every object. It belongs to the class. Every object needs to read input, and so the method becomes static. Whereas if there is something that every object needs to do on an individual basis, that method is said to be non-static. Right? So again, with time, with experience, you will learn what methods should be static or can be made static and what methods cannot be made static at all. Have to be individually belonging to objects. Okay. So our next job is, so once I'm done, I'll put this on Blackboard. I'll post this on Blackboard, this code. It's simple, but you will still have it for reference. So whenever in the break, I'll put this code on Blackboard for you guys. Okay, under weekly learning. Let's create a new project. Let's now talk about something simple that will make sense to you and go ahead from there. Okay, so let's create next project name. I'm going to create a simple calculator, okay? I'll try to do things that you can understand or see. So this is Thursday. Create main class calculator.calculator. I don't need it, but anyway. Oh, this is main class, not main method. Okay. With NetBeans, I just have to be careful. Okay, so we'll remove these. And we'll put this comments. So now, my aim here is to build a class or to build a blueprint or to build a definition of something that can do simple calculations. I've called that something calculator, right? You can call it simple calculator. It's really simple. It will just do 4 simple jobs: addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. That's all. Therefore, I'm calling it a simple calculator. Okay, so I want to create a definition. So somebody says, oh, can you, what would the calculator do? What will it need? Its data, its attributes, and what can it do? Can you think about it? Let's create a blueprint. And somebody did make a blueprint of a calculator. And therefore, you have calculators in the market, right? So somebody did think about what a calculator should have and what should it be able to do. Okay, so let's see. Let's talk about it, what it should have as in terms of data, or how do I look, and what can it do? Okay, so what is required for a calculator to work? What does it need? Input. So it needs numbers, right? So inside a calculator, there must be 2 numbers at a time. Calculations are always done 2 numbers at a time. Even if you have a long expression, they go 2, answer to the next one, answer to the next one. You can only 2 calculations. Binary operators, all operators are binary. Plus, minus, multiplication, division, they're all binary. So you could have a long expression, but it doesn't happen together. It happens in 2 at a time. So in a calculator, you need space for, or the data that a calculator needs are 2 boxes in which it can keep its numbers, right? So numbers, because calculator works with numbers. I'll go with real numbers or with floats or whatever, right? I'll go with real numbers, not integers, because the numbers can have fractional parts. So that's its data. That's what a calculator needs, nothing else. right? So how do I look, or what do I need to work with, are these two boxes, two numbers. So these become the instance variables of your classes, right? Every object, every calculator that is manufactured requires two boxes inside it, which can save two numbers that you need. So these become its instance variables. That's what instance variables are. They're called instance variables because every instance has those variables inside it. Right? Every object has those variables inside it. So again, you have to think, what should be instance variables? What should be local variables? What should be parameters? You just can't make everything an instance variable, because remember, instance variables are those variables that belong to the object. The object needs it, right? So those are its instance variables. What should a calculator be able to do? Methods, functionality. So methods are like verbs and variables are like nouns, right? So they kind of say, what do I need? That's all it is. What do I need and what can I do? How do I look and what can I do? So how do I look is two numbers. That's what's inside me. What can I do? What should a calculator be able to do? Multiply, divide, add and subtract. So you need four buttons or four methods. You go click. So you say input 1, input 2, click, add. Input 1, input 2, click, subtract, and so on. So you'll say, oh, every time I'll have to give two numbers? No, you can put those two numbers inside the object and say, do addition for me, do subtraction for me, do multiplication, do division. Oh, I want to change one number. Change my number 1. Oh, I want to change my second number. Change my number 2. So you need buttons for changing your numbers also. Because a calculator can not only work with two numbers, it can work with any two numbers. So you need four methods to add, multiply, subtract, and divide. Then you need two more methods to change number 1 and change number 2. 6 methods. And then you definitely need a constructor to construct an object. So those are your methods. So that's how you think. So anytime you are given, oh, what do I need? You diagram it. And this is the name of the class is written in the calculator in the first block, name of the class. Then follow all instance variables. So what did we decide? We said we wanted variables. Instance variable will be private. By default, not by default, by convention, object-oriented programming has this rule which says all data must be private, because you don't want data to be changed by any Tom, Dick, and Harry. Only authorized personnel can change data. Think of something simple as your favorite machines, vending machines in the college. You want to go get a Coke, you press on the Coke button, you put in money, and the Coke comes in. If anybody could open the door, change the Coke from the Coke place to the Fanta place, the chips, the Doritos into chips, the Lays into Doritos, and now you say, I need a Coke, and the Fanta is coming out. Doesn't make sense, right? So therefore, data needs to be private. But having said that, there are two completely repellent groups. One says private. That's fine. Make it public so that we don't have to write methods to change it and write methods to get it. I change it. Why should I write a method? It's public. I can change it. The other group says, what the hell? Like the world will be in a chaos if I do that. No, data has to be private. If I decide that you can change it, I'll give you a button to change it. If I decide you can see it, I'll give you a button to see it. Otherwise, I won't. Think of it. If in a car, you could open the hood and change your speed and change your brake, it would be a mess. So what have you been provided? You have been provided with buttons or an interface. And if you want to increase your speed, you want to change your gear, if it is a manual car or whatever, you have buttons to do. You don't go and open the hood and say, oh, this is what I want to do. And so therefore, two completely different classes, some say data should be public, some say data should be private. I'm on the private side, right? I say it doesn't make sense to make everything public. If you need to make it private, and any access that you want to give to the outside world, give it through buttons. If you don't want to give it access, don't give it. If you want to give it access, give it, right? So my data will be private. Almost in all my code, I'll keep my data private. So this stands for private, minus for private, plus for public. Those are the symbols used in the class diagram. Then comes the name of your variable. Please give them good proper names. I'm going to call my first instance variable number 1, and it will be of type, you can choose the type. You can go float, you can go double, whatever you want, right? And so you put a colon and then you put the type. You can decide, right? Floats are smaller, doubles are bigger, we know that, more precise. You can even go big, you can go classes, big decimal, big float, whatever. But we are kind of keeping it. First example, we are trying to concentrate on class definition rather than using the right type. Of course, double will very quickly go out of answer, or go out of space. But anyway, I mean, there are options. And number 2 will also be of type. So the second box consists of a list of all your instance variables. No local variables, nothing, only your instance variables. They belong to the class. The class cannot exist without these. Needs it, right? So if I say person, if my class is persons, and I say what are the attributes of a person, what comes in your mind? Let's say student. Student is much easier. Student. What are the attributes of a student? How do you recognize a student? What are the fields of a student? The characteristics of a student?
Crippling amounts of debt.
Come again?
Crippling amounts of debt.
Okay.
Student ID.
Student ID. 1. What else? What does a student have?
Textbooks.
Textbooks. Okay, so textbooks. So a list of textbooks, right? A name, semester number, things like that. So as soon as you say or define something, think of how do I reckon car, make, model. Things come to your mind, right? So those are the attributes of a class. How do you recognize me? What should each object of the class have? That's what are the attributes. Then come methods. Definitely almost all classes will have a constructor. You will say, what can you do without a constructor? Java has a default constructor. Therefore, I can work without a constructor, but they will all have constructors. So assuming that there is a constructor, the constructors are public, right? Have the same name as the name of the calculator. Or may not need parameters. I'm writing one without parameters, and never return anything. I have overloaded constructors. I could have another constructor that takes 2 numbers. Both the numbers are provided. So when the object is created, 2 numbers are put into it, the default numbers. Maybe you want to start your calculator with 10 and 20. Usually doesn't happen, right? But calculators don't have anything inside. Look at how I'm writing. The name of the method, this is a constructor, name of the method. The parameter list, if empty, you write it like this. If not empty, write the parameters, just their types will do. Takes 2 parameters, colon and the return type. Right? So for example, if I was writing an add method, I'll call it add methods. Oh, not add numbers. I'm calling it add numbers. The method is called add numbers. Does it require any parameters? No, because the numbers are inside the object. You've already said each object will have 2 boxes, 2 numbers. So it already has it. Does it return anything? Add numbers?
Yes.
Yes. What will it return? A result of type double, assuming double plus double is a double. So you will kind of fill this box with all the methods that you have in the class. This is a class diagram. Diagram to you, you should be able to code it. If I give you a class description, you should be able to create a class diagram out of it. Right? So this is a diagrammatic representation of my class. And I'm going to convert this diagrammatic representation into code. That's what I'm going to do. Are we okay? Are we clear with what I'm doing? So I'm going to create a class definition of a calculator. And this calculator works with 2 numbers and can do 4 simple operations. You can change the numbers if you want. You can see them if you want. Not a big thing. We can always get them. And you can change them and you can get them and you can get the results. So you have 4 buttons. 8 actually. 2 to get them, 4 for the 4 methods. And constructor, of course. So it could be a long list. So let's start coding. So the aim today is to create a class definition. And then once you have the class definition ready, how do you know it works? You will create an object of it. And then you will say, add these 2 numbers for me. Change my first number. Change my second number. And you will do things with the calculator, as you do with your calculator. Okay? Ready? Let's start. Okay, so do it with me. So start this class. This is a class description. This class simulates, you can say simulates, you can say defines, whatever you like. It's only defining a simple calculator capable of just 4 simple operations, okay? Addition, subtraction, my ears are very sharp, even I'm above 50, okay? And division, and division. There, that's what it does. So write a short description of your class at the beginning of your class. Every class has to have it. Minimum you'll always have marks for it. Short description. Then comes the author. Please see that if more than one, comma and go on. It doesn't become authors. Then comes the version. Sequence is not important. This is my first version at trying it. Then version control, GitHub. I can start using GitHub. Are you becoming familiar with GitHub in other classes? Are you using it? It's easy. I can keep putting it on GitHub, and NetBeans does it very easily. I just did it yesterday. I saw a small video and it was so simple. And I tried it and it worked. And that's since. The advantage of version control is very prime in a programmer's work environment. You keep putting whatever changes you make, small or big, you keep saving them, not in the same copy, but you keep saving it in different copies, right? So if you decide to go back to a previous version, you just pick that up and you start working on it. You have all your versions, therefore it is called version controlling. Does it. You can, every few minutes or anything I do new, I put it on GitHub. So it puts it in, they're called commits. It just puts it in different files kind of. I don't know how it links it. Of course, it's not copying everything. It's only saving the changes and then picking the original and adding changes is my thinking. I don't know how it works. And in this sense, we'll go with data. Excuse me. I want this at the head of every class definition. So that's your first mark, maybe. If it's there, you have 1 mark. Right? Okay. So that's what is required in class comments, nothing else. And they're Java doc comments. Notice they're Java doc comments. Start with the slash and a double star and end with the star and a slash. These stars in between are not necessary. It's just NetBeans making it a little neat. I mean, these stars on each line are not necessary. It starts with a slash and a double star and ends with the star and a slash. That's the rule. It doesn't matter. Okay? Okay. Now let's start. Your first job, remove your main. It's not an application. Make a point usually whenever you have closing brackets to save yourself some time in error checking. Just say off calculator class. Start always commenting your closing brackets. They are menace. Like one gone and you'll have syntax errors. You know what I mean? Like, so every time you open, close, put a comment so that you don't forget who's ending it. Okay, so there is how you define a class in Java. It has to be public, otherwise it's a useless class. Then comes the reserved word class. Then comes the name of the class, and conventions need to be followed. Class names have to use Pascal naming convention. Every word is capitalized, right? That's what it is. If it is a single word, it still is capitalized with the first letter. If it is a joint of words, simple calculator, then you capitalize the first word of the first letter of every word. You have to follow this convention. Think it as a rule. If I don't see naming conventions being followed, you're going to lose marks. It will say, assignment will say, please follow Java naming conventions. Right? So anything I ask, I'm putting my effort in marking it. So I expect you to put effort in doing it. And it is something that will help you in the long run. Okay? Okay, now let's define our instance variables. There are no Java doc comments with instance variables, so you're okay here. A line of saying instance variables or fields or attributes would be good to see. Okay. Now keep something in mind. Object-oriented code is encapsulated. Encapsulated means data, how I look and what can I do comes together. And you can shake it and it doesn't matter. It still remains in the capsule. What it means in terms of write, you don't have to write your instance variables first, then your methods. You can write them in any order you want. It's a definition. You can write them in any order. You can write a method, a instance variable. Two methods, another instance variable. It's untidy, but it's all in together. That object-oriented programs. Second, we've already talked about private variables, so I'm calling it second, or it's the first one. Its properties that data and methods are encapsulated. N-E-N, encapsulated, in a capsule. They're encapsulated. So it doesn't matter. This sequence is not important that you write your instance variables and then write your constructors and then write your other method. Nothing is, no sequence is important. Not so in procedural languages, that's different. You have to declare a variable before you use it. You know what I mean? But here, instance variables and methods can be put in any order, and it doesn't matter. So usually you will see that instance variables are defined first, and then come constructors, then come the getters and the setters, and then come your normal methods. But there's no rule. Okay, so let's define our instance variables. We said that I am on the side of making my variables private. If you are going to do public, it's up to you. But if my assignment says private, you have to make them private. Right? Okay, so we said they were double. So you know what? You don't have much choice. Said we will call them, we'll give them good names. Please don't call them N1, N2, X1, X2. Don't do that. It doesn't take time. Don't be lazy. Don't. And usually, again, it's just a convention. It's not a rule. It's a convention that even though variables are of the same type, in Java, the programming style doesn't put them in the same line. You don't go number 1, comma, number 2. Both of them are private. Both of them are double. You could just put them all in one line. These variables are written one per line. It's just a programming style, which almost all Java programmers follow. Instance variable per line. Just a programming style, nothing else. Now come your constructors and your set methods and your get method. Let's not try to put a constructor. I will automatically put a constructor for you. Code a constructor because it constructs an object, because it makes an object. Therefore, it is called constructor. It's just a special method. What's special about it? Because it has a special job. Unless you create a object, how will you work with it? So it has a special job. Therefore, it doesn't return anything. Though it returns the object, I mean, it creates the object, it doesn't return anything. Not write the constructor for now to prove that Java does put in a empty constructor for you. Java does. I can prove it. I can create an object. So I don't need a constructor, right? Now let's write our methods. I would like to write a method to change the two numbers, maybe together. Maybe one button can change both, though usually it doesn't happen. A method does a job, but let's write these methods now. Now I did find out that you could put, now where did I find? That you can put getters and setters. Where was it? Source, edit. You can put getters and setters automatically in code, right? Help me, people who know NetBeans better than I do. You can, oh, was it in refactor? It was not in refactor. You can put empty setters and getter methods. Where was it? It should be either in edit. In Eclipse, it's right in edits, okay? Can be in view, no. Can be in navigate, can be in source, maybe. Fix code, insert code, complete code. Have you ever done it?
You hit Alt and insert code.
Or no, it automatically puts their templates. NetBeans will put templates for getters and setters. Oh God, I just found it yesterday, and now because I haven't used team cannot be team tools. No, somewhere in.
So put your cursor in
the
yeah.
Wherever I want it, and then
Hit Alt and then insert.
Alt and insert. Alt and insert. Oh, okay, that's a short form. Okay, it was in one of those also. Okay, thank you. So here, that's another shorthand, much better. But somewhere in the menu also, I found it yesterday. You can put a constructor. You'll say, how do I put it? It puts a template, like an empty method. I won't put a constructor, but I'll put a setter. Oh, there. Okay, good. So I want to put a setter for number 1. I want to put a setter for number 2. And I say, come on, there. And say generate. Now, if you don't like it, if you would like to type it yourself, I would highly recommend that in the first couple of examples, you do it yourself. It was alt insert, right? And then you could choose getters and setters and whatever. Thank you, right? I forget your name. Sorry, your name? Right, okay, my math class, right? Okay, so see what the set number one method does. The set number, all set methods are also called mutator methods. They change something, right? Therefore, they're called mutators. Mutators means changing. They usually have the verb set in front of them. It's not a rule, it's a convention. Because it kind of makes sense. Oh, you're setting, you're changing number. It will always take a parameter. Why? Because you're changing something, you're giving a value to something, so you need that new value. And it will always have a return void type because you don't return anything. You could say, oh, done. You could return a Boolean value, yes, done. But otherwise, you do a job. You're doing a job. So let's write its comments. Please write Java doc comments. The method. This method do. This method sets or changes the first number. Please don't write the names of your variables in your comments. Nobody knows about them. The user doesn't know them. You'll say, who's my user? Remember when you go to the Java library here, if I look at anything, if I look, it mentions the names of the parameters, they're all here, but it doesn't say return value returns the name of a variable which you don't even know belongs to that class. Nobody can look at the variables. Anywhere in the Java documentation, do you see the name of instance variables? No. So don't use them in your comments, right? So I'm saying this method sets changes the first number. Makes sense to any common man. Okay, so does it need a param? Yes, it needs a param. What is that param called? Number one. Right? And what is this number one for? What does it do? You can say a double if you want. This is not necessary. A string, a double to set or change. Why am I saying set or change? I'll tell you in a minute. The first number. Does it return anything? No, there is no add return. Those are the comments at the head of every method. Every method needs Java doc comments. And they will convert to something like you are seeing in the Java documentation. Okay? Okay, so those are my comments. There is only one param, there is no return type, and there is nothing else. Now, by default, NetBeans has been smart enough to say, oh, you will give me this value. This is called a parameter, right? This is also local to the method. Anything in the parameter list and any local variables in this closing and opening brackets only belong to this method called set number one. So it says, okay, you will give me something. I'll take that something and put it in my own box. This statement is also syntactically right, but is logically wrong. What is this statement doing? What is this statement doing after I remove the word this?
It's like changing the value, but like it's not unique to the objects. It's instantiated a bunch of objects with.
So it's not even talking to the object. The local variable number one is being assigned to itself. It's not even talking to the object, right? Okay, look at the code. It says it hasn't given me a syntax error because it's syntactically not wrong. But logically, it is not doing anything. Okay, so what does it do? It says, who are you, number one? You'll say, I don't know who's number one. Is it talking about this number one or is it talking about the instance variable number one? If you don't want to confuse it, you could have called this number one, just for the heck of it, I'm writing a one here. And now it says, oh, this is this number one, and this is my instance variable. But again, Java programmers say, I can't think of 1001 names. What is the heck? Why can't I just use this? Okay, let's use this. So when it tries to find this number one, remember in assignment statement, right-hand side always happens first. So it's looking for this number one. It starts to look. And it stops right at the parameter list. Oh, there is number one. That's the input the user has given. Takes it, right? Takes it. And then assigns it to the variable on the left-hand side. Again, it says, who is this variable? Let me look for it. Again, starts searching and stops where? And it says, oh, number one. So what has it done? It has taken the value you gave it as a parameter and it has put it in itself. Doesn't do anything. Doesn't do anything. It hasn't done what you want to do. What is the job of this method set number one? The job of a set method is to change the value of the instance variable. That you click and say, here, you click it and it says, what's the new number? You'll say, why do I need set methods? An object whose value never changes is useless. Kind of, not at all times, but many times. So So if it was a person and I have an attribute called age of a person changes. So if I cannot change it, then does the person always remains 0 years old? No. So we need a set method. So the set method, this button is required because you have a variable instance, private instance variable inside the object, and you need to change it. So will a private variable always have a set method? No, it will depend upon the application. You won't have a set method to change your own account, money in your account in a bank. Can't have it. But yes, you will have a set method to change a number in a calculator because you need to change it. Otherwise, the calculator is useless. If you create a calculator and you input two hard-coded numbers inside it, 2 and 3, it will only always add 2 and 3 multiply. What will you do with that number? It's useless. So you should have a button to change it, and that's why we have a set method. So set methods are mutated methods whose job is to change the value of instance variables. So you write the instance variable on the left-hand side, and you write the parameter name, the value that you are providing on the right-hand side. So what has happened? You provide a value, that value is taken from you. It comes through the parameter, right? And it is assigned to this dot number. And this is a reserved word standing for the current object, to the object you're talking. This is how Java differentiates between the local variable number 1 and the object instance variable number 1 by putting this in front of it. That's the use of this. This says the current objects, the object's number. Okay, so that's what this does. Therefore, this is important. Otherwise, without this, the data inside the object is not changing. It's a useless assignment statement. And similarly for number 2. So repeat your comments for number 2. Oops, you need a break, right? That's why people are starting to move in their seats. Okay, so set is the second number. Okay, just let me complete this comment and I'll give you a break. I just forget. Sometimes you will have to tell me when it is time, not all the time. Are we okay with all comments? Method changes the second number. Oh, number 2, double. Are set methods clear? So usually your code will have as many set methods, cannot have more, will have a maximum of as many set methods as the number of instance variables in your class. One for each of the private variables that the programmer decides can be changed by the outside mode. Right? And therefore these methods are public. Their use is to take a parameter and assign it to a variable. So if I wanted to add this to my diagram here, this is how I'll add it. I'll say it's a public method. It's called set number 1, takes a parameter of type double and returns nothing. Right? I just added this method. I haven't added these methods. So let me only add what I will when I do this. But that's what I've added. And I've added another method. I've called it set number 2. It takes a parameter of type double. Doesn't matter. You could even say double D. Like you can give it a name if you want. You don't have to. And so I've added these 2 methods to my class. I haven't added a constructor, but there is a constructor, hidden constructor. We'll take a break of 20 minutes. Please come back in 20 minutes and then. Okay, so remember, variables, instance variables should be kept private. And then on top of it, we are providing set methods to change it. So you're saying you're contradicting yourself. Here you're trying to say my variables should be private. And then you're saying I'm providing methods to do it. But remember, methods can only be called through objects. Whereas public instance variables are available to be changed from wherever, doesn't matter. Okay, so there is a difference. And then again, it is your wish as a programmer, depending upon your application, whether you will or will not provide the set method. It's not a rule that you have to provide set methods. So like set methods, on the same grounds that since they are private and you would like to look at their values, also available are getters or accessor methods. And it was Alt enter, did you say? No, Alt insert, right? Alt insert. There. So try your getters. And we'll create getters for both of them again. And again, the use of get methods is simply to return their values, to see. Right? So since they are private and they're inside, if you would like to say, oh, what's inside you? What's your value? So this is not as if it's, it's going to change a variable. It's just normal. They're just accessor methods. They're also called accessor methods, and their use is to show the value to the object. So if I say object, what's inside you in number 1, I can call the get number method. Again, there is no rule that every variable has to have a getter. But getters are non-destructive. You know, I mean, you can destruct the object in any way. You're just seeing it. But again, it may or may not be available, right? So these are called getters. So if you kind of think about getters and see what they just return a value. So they don't take any parameters. So I've added another method, get number 1. Takes no parameters and will always return some kind of value, one single value. In our case, double, because our number 1 is double. Similarly, I've added another method, get number 2. That again takes, get methods don't take parameters. Makes sense, like they're just getting the value for you, right? So you're asking the object to show number 1, and you press that button, get number 1. You want to see the second number, you press that button, get number 2. Another advantage, another big advantage of getters and setters is this. Now this is very simple, but in a setter, if you wanted to validate your data that the user is giving you, so you're saying set age. Now age cannot be negative, right? And age cannot, assuming age cannot be more than 150, we kind of make that range. Not less than 0, cannot be less than 0. So when a person, the user provides the age, what does the program do? The object says, oh, age minus 50, that doesn't seem to be a valid value, I will not change. So a message can go back saying age will not be changed. You know what I mean? So setters can do data validation, input validation. Similarly, getters. Now getters can give back the answer, not necessarily as a double. I could have returned the first number is and showed the number 1. So I'm giving a formatted output. So your get methods could give formatted output. It doesn't depend upon how they're implemented, whether it's a double, whether it's a int, whether it's a float, doesn't matter. The message going out is number 1, the first number is, and it shows you the value. So again, you can format your getters. So getters and setters can do data input validation, and getters can give your answers in a format. And if you now change your double from double to float, you don't have to change the method. It is still returning a string. And it doesn't matter whether you change it from a float to a double, or from a double to an int, from a big int to a big int. So that's another main use, that you can validate your input in the set methods, and you can format your output in the get methods. These ones are really simple. I didn't do anything at all, but you could do that. And that's how they're more useful. Okay, so those are my getters and setters. Okay, so that's job done. So I have 2 instance variables. Both instance variables were private. So I had to have some buttons on my interface by the help of which I could either change their value or I could get their value. You'll say, what will you do with get? I forget what I put in my first number. I just have a memory blank, right? So that's the getters, okay? But again, it's not a rule that every instance variable has to have a getter and a setter. There is no rule. Now come the important method. So again, please don't forget your Java documents. So this method returns the value of, or the first number. It won't have any params. Gets don't have any params. And what does it return? Now don't write here the name of the variable number 1. The user cannot see your instance variables, right? They're not public. They can't be seen. So just say return the first number. Normal English, like just normal one. And you can format it also. I saw it somewhere. Alt Shift F. Okay, there it is. Please see that your code is indented, and it just takes the click of a key and do it so that when I read it, it's easy. So take this again. And so every method needs to have Java doc comments at its head. It's a requirement. It will be a requirement, even if it's something as small as this. So you could code them yourself, and I would for a couple of times so that you get the knack of it. And then once you become a little smarter, which I'm hoping you will, and definitely you will, then you can start using NetBeans to give you getters and setters. Then you needn't waste your time. Even if I wanted to format it, I would go here, change it into string, and return the second number is, right? So I still have the template. I still have the code, at least the structure. Okay, now let's write our methods. Keep in mind that now these two numbers belong to the object. You can change them anytime you like. You can get them or see them anytime you like. So the numbers are inside the object. The data belongs to the object. So now, having said that, let's say I'm going to write a method which is going to return the sum of the two numbers. Right? So will it take any parameters? Will the add method take any parameters? What do you say? Does it need to take any parameters? Let's hear some ideas. Nothing is wrong and nothing is right, guys. Unless you take it out of your brain, how will you kind of talk it aloud? Does the add method, which is adding the two numbers in the object, need to take any parameters? Any input from the user?
You've already created the object with two numbers.
Yeah, you've already created the two data pieces that it needs inside the object. So you don't have to pass it parameters. They're inside, they belong to the object, right? Anytime you need to change it, you have a button to change it. So you can, and then press the add button. So the add button will definitely return a double because it's going to add. We can call it add numbers. Will not take any parameters. So let's say, so it won't take any parameters. So where are we? Here. So here we'll say at return. And please, again, you cannot change the annotations. It has to be add return. Spelt case sensitive. You can change it. These Java doc comments cannot be changed. I mean, these annotations that you use cannot be changed. They have to be written this way. So if you have more than one parameters, you will go at param, as many parameters as you have. Okay. Okay. So it returns the sum of the two numbers. Now, and what does it do? You could use local variables, keep the sum and so on, but it would be just easy to return number 1 plus number 2. I mean, I could create a local variable, put number 1 plus number 2 inside it and then return it. But like, why do you need local variables? Why write more code when not required? Okay. Now duplicate or quadruplet, make 4 copies of this, 3 more copies, and then make changes. 1 for subtraction, 1 for multi-product, 1 for division, and 1 for subtraction. Okay, so let's start. That's my first. Notice how it's giving me a red squiggly over add numbers. Why? Because two methods cannot have the same name in class. Overloaded methods can have the same name but need different parameters. But here the parameters are also same, no parameters. So let's call this subtract numbers. Now there are a few ways of doing subtraction. You could say, oh, it will give me the positive difference, but usually you go number 1 minus number 2. So we'll say difference here. We'll say, oops. We'll say the difference. And we'll change the plus into minus. There, job 2 done. Second method is ready. So think what are these methods doing? These methods are the functionality of your class. What can my class do? Right? Okay, let's do the third method, the product. So you see this red squiggly because again, I already have a method called add numbers. I cannot have the same method name again. I can have it again if and only if the parameter list is empty. Oh, sorry, different, not empty. Multiply the two numbers. And my, oh, one's short. Add these 4 to your class diagram. And you can always say return a float for the sum, a float, oh, sorry, a double. You can mention the type also, okay? And this is returning the quotient, and double by double gives a double. Integer by integer gives an integer. So I'm doing a double by a double. And actually, if you divide by 0 in Java, if you're dividing by 0 and they're integers, 2 divided by 0 gives you an error. But 4.2.0 divided by 0 doesn't give you an error. It gives you NaN, not a number. So I don't know why they did it. I have no clue, but division by 0 is not logical. We know that it's not correct. So you can always take care of that. I'll show you how to do this. So it returns the quotient. It behaves differently for real numbers and differently for integers. Shouldn't be, but that's what it does. Quotient of dividing. You can kind of change this a little just because dividing the first number by the second number. Number into or by, whatever you want to say. Whatever makes sense to you. So we'll say quotient after division maybe. That way at least it will make sense. The product subtraction makes sense, but division kind of doesn't. So my 4 methods are ready. Let's test at least what we have created and then see, oh, what can I do? Make sense? Are the 4 methods making sense? So the 4 methods are simply adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. That's all they're doing. Okay, so let's see if it works. Now, just for the heck of it, if you wanted to change both the numbers together. So I have a set number 1. I have a set number 2. Do you think you can write a method called set numbers that changes both of them? Can you try writing it and take a couple of minutes to write it and then match it with mine and we'll do it? Try it. Try writing a method that changes both the numbers. So how many inputs will you need? How many parameters? 2. And how many statements, assignment statements inside it? 2. So we have a set method. Usually you don't necessarily write a combination, but let's try just writing it so that you can see that you decide what do I need to do. So try to write a set here. Add it in my set line. I'm just adding it here. So this method, see if you can do it. I'll wait for you. I'll give you a couple of minutes. It won't take more than a couple of minutes. This method sets or changes both the numbers. That's what this method does. Uh-oh. Okay, so it will require one param called number 1. Doesn't matter what you call it. And it is a float or a double if you would like to say that. And it will require another param. So notice here is a method where you are having more than one params. Okay, help me write the signatures. Is the method public or private? Is the method public or private? Public? Okay. What does the method return? Setting the 2 numbers, changing the 2 numbers. What is the return type? Void. Thank you. What is the method called? Call it whatever you like. How many parameters does it take? 2. Perfect. Of what type? Double and double. And it actually does a job of changing the two numbers. So could I take the help of some other methods that already exist to do this? Can I call set number 1 and set number 2 from here? Because they do the job already. Call the set number 1 method from here and pass it the number 1 parameter, assuming that's your first number. Call the set number 2 method from here and pass it the number 2. See there, I've written a method that is using the other 2 set methods. And I still have to write my validation only in the set methods. I won't repeat it here. Any validation you want to do, if you're only working with positive numbers, I'll put the validation there. I'll say if the numbers are bigger, call them. Otherwise, do whatever. Yes? No, not necessarily, no. There is only one method and the method belongs in the class, so there is no ambiguity. You could, but you don't have to. You can put this wherever you like, wherever it is a instance variable name or a method name, but you don't have to. It's not required. It's not a requirement. See, now I've written a method called set numbers. So usually it will not happen because at a time you only change one number, like you're pressing a button, but there is an option. So that option is saying you can change both numbers. So give me both the numbers and I'll change both the numbers for you. I can do it. So I just added that method to show you, one, the use of the param, 2 params. You don't say params and put them together. You go add param. And then I've shown you how you call another method in the method of the class. Methods can call each other. Class. So it just says, can you do? Just delegating the job further. That's it. Why will I repeat code? Though it's only one line of code, but why would I repeat it? I don't repeat code. We don't repeat code. You write the code at one place and you ensure that it will always be correct. If you need to make changes, you do it at one place. That's why we don't repeat code. We write it at one place. Let one method do one job. That's your job to do. Let all validation, whatever has to be done in that. So you're safe, right? You're safe. There is only one way of doing one thing, kind of. Okay, so that's two numbers. At this point of time, if you compile this code, there are no compilation errors, of course, because oh no, sorry. We can only compile this code because it doesn't have a main. It's not an application. I cannot run it. It's a definition. It's a blueprint. It does not exist. We have to make an object out of it to work with it. So unless somebody defines how houses are to be built or how labs have to be built, how can we build them? We need a blueprint to make it. So somebody had to first define a model for the calculator. And once the model was created, then real objects came into existence. So a simple calculator is different from a statistical calculator, is different from scientific calculator, and so on. They all have the same base. They are all inheriting from the same concept, the same base, and they add more to it. Different things or more to it. Okay, are we okay? Now let's try seeing if this class works. Does it work? Like writing is okay, but who knows whether it works or not? I'll only know it works if I have the right answers. Let's see how to work with it. Are we clear till here? Has it gone in everybody's head? Is it clear? Like, do you understand what I'm trying to do? That's important. Any no's? Doesn't matter if you have a no. Really doesn't matter. I'm glad. Very good. So I'm assuming you know it, right? Okay, so let's create a new class. Sorry, a new file. Let's call it will go in that project. It is a Java class. And go to next. I just have to read carefully because I'm not used to this yet still. Test calculator. We'll call it test calculator. You can call it anything you like. And remember, writing a tester is as big a job as writing a class. I shouldn't say so, but quite a big job. Because if you don't test your class properly, then you can put it out in the market. So writing testers is an art in itself. You could be only Java testers, right? But now, of course, we have that JUnit. I mean, now the testing has become more, instead of manual, you could say it's more automatic. Though, of course, you have to write code for it, but it's kind of done for you. So we'll learn how to write JUnit tests also. Are we all okay? Location, package, create the file, and finish. Okay, there it is. So whatever this means. So now I'm writing a Java application. Oh, it didn't put the main for me. Must have missed something. Okay, so this is a tester, basically. This application tests, that's what it does. The calculate, or you can, let's try to put it, creates calculator objects. It's a little bit technical here, but this is a description of the class, which, the least I can do. This application creates calculator objects and tests them or functions them or uses them, kind of whatever you like. Or test the various methods, give your name. In the tester, there is not much Java documentation. But remember, nobody's going to use like a class. Nobody's going to use it. You definitely need Java doc comments in classes because somebody needs to use it. What's the version 1 for this one also for now? And then what's the date? Oops. Okay, there. Okay, so what's your job? How do you write a Java application? You should have that special method called main, right? So public static void main takes an array of string array, as many as you want, starting from 0. Okay, you can call it whatever you like. And that's the end of your main, and that's the end of your tester. Okay, how do I now test a class? First thing I have to do is create an object of that class and then test all its methods. I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 4, 9 methods to be tested, right? If all of them work with all kind of data, positive, negative, extreme value, minimum value, everything has to be tested, then it's ready to go out into the market. Okay, then the model is ready. Okay, so let's start. We don't have a constructor in our class, but as I said, Java does have a default constructor. Since both these classes, calculator, both these classes are sitting in the same package, I can use I can use the calculator class in my test calculator because they're sitting in the same package. If they were in different packages, I would import the package that has the calculator class, like you import the package that has your util class or whatever, util package has your class, and then you can use it. But here I'm in the same package. I have the same package statement at the head, right? They're in the same package. And by scope of packaging together, classes can use each other. Can create my first calculator. How do you create an object? Go new. Call the construct. Call the constructor. By default, the only constructor available in your class is this constructor, the default. Takes no parameters and does what? It initializes the instance variables to default values. All numbers are initialized to 0. All objects are initialized to null. That's the rule. Boolean is initialized to false, right? What else do we have? Character is initialized to the non-printable character, the first one in its list. Those are its default values. So numbers go to 0, Boolean goes to false. I think character goes to that one, or does it go to blank? No, it doesn't go to blank. I think it goes to the non-printable character. I can double check, I forget. And what else data type is available in Java? Basic, nothing. So what we are left with? Objects. Objects go to null. That's its default value. So the default constructor does create an object. The data inside the object is all default, and that default is defined by Java. So when you are creating a calculator like this, and I would like to see what's inside it, let's see. What do you expect? If I do a system.out.println, or printf, whatever you would like to, I can use that. And I want to show the first number. How will I show it? Help me. How will I show it? I want to see what's inside my object cal1 in its first box. Exactly, get. Can I see who answered that? I'll start giving bonus marks for answering now, because otherwise you'll sleep in my class. This is sleeping time. So we'll start putting your names down. I will, because you won't learn otherwise. Okay, how do I call the method? So there is a get number 1 method, right? How do you call it? Calculator 1, cal1 dot get. See, now I see so many answers. Get number 1. Numbers always get, marks always gets you up and going. I'm glad. Okay, let's try the second one. What do you expect as the answer? Yep. And what do you expect as answers if I run this? Zeros. Exactly. Both will come out as 0. That's what the object contains. So class is just a definition. So in the Java library, you have thousands and thousands of classes. These are kind of common classes, classes that are needed generally. String class, such a common class, right? Swing classes to make use components, G-option pin, components, right? Some util classes. So those classes were created so because the general public needed it. Maybe someday when you're great programmers, you will create a class that is needed and it will go into the Java library. And try to create your own classes and at least share it amongst yourself. Oh, I've created a class for this. Do you need this calculator class? Okay, here. So that's how you will learn, right? Okay, so now let's see what is expected. So if I can do this, I have proved to you that Java has a default constructor that is available. If it cannot, I cannot do it, it should. I mean, it will come like, I don't see any red squigglies. So there is an empty constructor in my class. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to call it. I cannot. So if I do this and I run it, unless now will the run have run which one? Or will it say, okay, so can I go right click and run from here? Run file. Okay. There, do you see it? I have first number is 0 and my second number is also 0. I have created a live object. This object is now something that I can work with. So I can call the add numbers method. It will return me a 0. I can call the subtract number methods. It will give me a 0. I can do all this stuff. So actually, you know what? Let me put it in a helper method so that I can keep calling it over and over again. So let's put a helper method. Let's create a private display results or whatever you would like to call it. because I'm going to call it helper method. We'll make it taking nothing, and we'll make it returning whatever. Oh, return type is missing. And static is also required. Cannot be, no, I mean, I can show you how to do it. It's very silly, but I can do it. Since display results belongs to this test calculator class, you can create an object of test calculator and call it. It's a silly way of doing it, so nobody does it, but it can be done. There is nothing wrong. I mean, in a class, you can create its own object and then you can call the method. Do you want to see it? It's not a common way of doing it, but you can. Therefore, we make it static. But you should just know about it. Nothing should be French to you. Okay, so you can create, I'm just calling it TC. Not a good name at all. Right? If I do something like this, then I can call with TC display results, which is valid. There's nothing wrong in it. Is it making sense? See, what did I do inside main? Though you have never done that, but it can. There's nothing wrong in it. So inside the test calculator, in the main method, I created an object of the same class. And now I can call display results with it because it belongs to the class. Not done because it's a headache. Like, I mean, why do it? If I make it static, then I can just call it. It's an application, so it's okay. But this is possible. So you can create non-static methods in your application and call them this way. Nothing stops you. The more common way is this. So you don't have to do this. So you don't have to do this silly thing. So if you want to, I can leave it here, just in case you want to see it. And when this goes on Blackboard, then you see it, but I'll put it in comments, okay? Then I don't have to make it static. I don't have to. If you like, I can kind of just so that you can see, but I hope it doesn't confuse you more than help you. I can make it a non-static method and I can call it with the help of an object. It can be done. It's doable. There's nothing wrong in it. Logically, it is right. Syntactically, it is right. Okay, now what I'll do in this is, I'll have to pass the number 1 and number 2 always. Okay, let's do it. It's not a big job. Better to do things right than to... Oh, where did that go? Okay, I'm passing the first number. Now the cal 1 has to be required everywhere. So I'll have to take this calculator out of the main and put it here in the class. Now I can use it in all the methods, right? So a few things have to be changed when you start using helper methods. I've taken the definition of the object and put it outside in my test calculator. It doesn't belong to main anymore. So if it doesn't belong to main, then you can use it wherever you like. I'll leave them as comments so that you can see them afterwards. What this will help is it will just kind of, I can use cal 1 everywhere. So I can use it here. I can use it, oh God. Okay, so it is a static variable. You have to be careful. Everything has to be static, right? Now it's okay. Okay, so no errors there. Okay, so look at what I've done. I'm creating a tester. I called it test calculator. I created a static variable so that I could use it throughout my code, right? In the main, I'm calling display results. And in the display results, I kind of just show the values of the 2 variables. Plus, I will add more. I'll show you everything. I'll go system. Why don't I do this? Show all 4 addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, results of everything. Okay. So this is sum. I'm not making it too neat, guys. You can make it as neat as you like. Nothing stops you. You can go, if you want to do that, here, go printf. Go printf. Go, this is a double number. So percentage point 2f. Percentage point 2f, 2 places after decimal, right? So you don't put a plus, then you put a comma. In printfs, you put commas. There, here. We'll just make it neater. Okay, let me make it smaller here. Okay, now what? Sum. You can use the same. We know that the answers will always be float. If you want to show more, If you want to show more than 2 places of decimal, that's up to you. I'm just doing a point to have for the heck of it. You can go 3, you can go 4. Okay. What do you want to do here? You want to call the method cal1.add numbers. And close it and do this. There. And we'll kind of printLF. Okay. printLF. There. And we can kind of copy and paste. We need to show 4 results. 2, 3, 4. This is the difference. And of course, you will call the right ones. This is the product. And this is the quotient. And we are calling subtract numbers. We are calling multiply numbers. And we are calling divide numbers. We'll go 1 back here, we'll go 2 back here, we'll go 3 back here. Are you okay? So I've written a display results and it will kind of help me because now all the printing is at one place. Top, okay. Is this clear? Are we okay with display results? Right? Are we all okay? I have all shown all 4. Please see that you call the right method everywhere. And they're all non-static methods. They belong to objects. They're not static. They have to be called with an object name. And I've already created an object outside my main in the class. So all methods can access it. Okay, here. That's all I did in main. Anything else, Amanda, or more? This was my declaration of calculator. Yeah, the static was missing. Yeah, we had that error. Keep in mind, everything has to be static in the application. Kind of not like it's easy. Okay, now what? So what are you expecting? All zeros? Oh, okay. Oh, I could have used dialog boxes. Oh, /n missing everywhere. With printf, I forget that I have to put a /n. And let's do that. So at least I don't have to keep doing it. So what is it? \n or even %n will do. Both work. Both work in, you know that there's a %n also. That does the same job. It can be used with printfs. Have you seen it? You can use a %n also if you like. It also stands for new line, but can only be used with printfs, not with printlns. Okay, but it works as far as I remember, unless things have changed. I mean, we are in habit of doing \n, but if I'm not mistaken, this also works.
I feel like %2 would do 2 lots.
Yeah, and percentage works instead. I can double check. I think I'm right. There. Yeah, and you would do 2 percentages. Yes, it's just you can use them only in printfs. You were not able to use it in lns, the system print lns, unless things have changed in 9 or 8 that I'm not aware of. But I can't remember. Like that's how you would do it. Okay, so %n is just easy because you're writing percentages, so you can write it too. Maybe that's what they thought. %n does the same function as \n. Next to your new line. Are we satisfied with the answers? Yes, except that again, I forgot my %ns here. Just because you're writing everything in percentage, they kind of think, I think they added it. I don't see any other use of it, but anyway. So there is number 1, there is number 2. And notice, do you notice something in quotient? NaN stands for not a number. You're dividing 0 by 0. Mathematically, 0 by 0 does not exist. So it gives you NaN for not a number. It doesn't blow up, it says N. So using real numbers only, I don't want to change everything and show you, but only real numbers will give you NaN. If my numbers were integers and I was trying to divide by 0, it will blow up. I don't know why they did it. Like if they want to do something, do it the same way, at least be consistent. And NaN doesn't mean a lot, but NaN stands for not a number. Just for your information. But that's not what you want to show your user. The user will say, what's NaN? So we will make it better. We will kind of give a message like division cannot be done. We will learn how to do that. Okay. Here we are going slow and steady wins the race, hopefully. Okay. Are we okay with it? So we have proved that a default constructor does exist. A default constructor does exist. Now go back to your calculator class and add your own constructor. I would like you to add a constructor for me that does this, takes the 2 numbers from you. So when you begin, when you create your object, it's like, think of something like this. Maybe it's silly, but think of something like this. When you're born, your parents give you a name. right? So S, or sometimes I think of a name before even you're born. But anyway, as soon as you're born, you're given a name. Now, it may happen that they have not thought of a name and you're not given a name till maybe you're 6 months old. Very odd, but maybe. Then that's the default constructor. You don't have anything. That's what it does. So if I create a constructor wherein I give the two numbers some default values or some values that the user tells me, then I'm okay. So this constructor creates an object with the two numbers initialized. Okay, so now again, it's up to you. If you want to give them default values, sure, though that's not very practical. So I'll take a param from the user for number 1. I'll take a param for the user for number 2. And I will, when I speak and when I type and when I do so many things together, things are bound to go wrong. Okay, so number 2 for, you know what, I had this somewhere. Let me copy and paste. There it is. Makes life a little easy. Though copying and pasting is not to be done, okay? You can, not as I do. There. So this constructor, okay, help me. Constructors are always public. Return type of constructor. Oscar, return type of constructor. Good. Name of a constructor. Ritesh, name of the constructor. How is the constructor named? Name of a constructor. Same as the name of the class. Okay, same as the name of the class. What was my class called? Calculator. I said it will take 2 parameters. First of type, double. What have I called it? Number 1. Second of type, double. What have I called it? Number 2. The job of the constructor to create the object and initialize it with some values if you want to. You were fine with the first constructor also. You were okay. There was nothing wrong in it. But now I have this option. So what will I call? Set the number 1. Use set methods. Don't repeat code. We'll talk about when not to be repeated, but right now this is how it is. And it is right. We just have to kind of manipulate it a little when we learn something new, inheritance. Set the 2 numbers. Now you have an option. You can create an object with this constructor. What do you do? What is the difference between this constructor and the default constructor? The default constructor's values were both 0. And here you can give any values if you want. So you're saying construct an object for me. Here are the 2 numbers I want you to initialize my object with. Initialize it. That's how it will be different. Let's test it. Are we okay? So I just wrote a constructor. You'll say what happened to the default one. Let's see. Does the default one still stay? Does the default one still stay? It's not giving me any syntax error. I don't know whether it's NetBeans doing it or whether Java has done it, that if you don't, I mean, it's always stays. Let's test it. I'm not sure. Let's see. Yep. I can still work with the default constructor. But now can I do something else? Try this now, guys. Try this. Create another static calculator object. Call it cal2. And call it with the new constructor that you just created. And let's pass 2, 3 to it. You see the difference of how I'm calling it? So now calculator. Oh, you know what? I don't think I compiled. What is it saying? Okay, so I didn't. It needs to be compiled then. Calculator though. Control S. Takes 2 doubles. Does this is called calculator. Do I have to say run and compile? No, it's not. It's fine. Why is it saying this? Oh, 2 doubles. No, but integers can go into doubles. Calculator. Constructor cannot be applied to given types.
Miss, it was the call. There's a 2 instead.
There is a, sorry, come again?
The call function, you put a 2 instead of the function.
No, that's the name of the object. That's calling the constructor and that's passing it 2 values. And it doesn't even, this calculator is also in italics. Okay, let's go back. Am I at the right place? There is my calculator. public void calculator takes 2 doubles. Why isn't it working? No, it's just a constructor. Why isn't it? You know what I think NetBeans is doing? Okay, let me try this. I'm not sure, but I don't know. That's strange. That's really strange. Like, and I have a, that is strange. Okay, let me try to do this if that's what is causing the problem. I'm going to write the empty one also, right? Oh. Because that's my understanding that it has to be done. But do I still get a problem? Yeah, I still get a problem. What's the problem? And the calculator is in italics. It's not even, it's, private double number 1, double number 2, set number 1, set number 2, call it with number 1 and number 2. Something I can't see and you guys can see. So that was not what was the solution. Of course, I'll have an error. Were compiled with errors run anyway? No. Oh, what's going on? It's a double. Double can take int values. What is it saying? Doesn't even make sense. The error it is saying is not even making sense. Constructor in class cannot be given required no arguments. Found int and int. It's not. Because integers are smaller boxes. Yeah, that doesn't make sense. Thankfully, it doesn't make sense. What's happening? Oh, does it help? Do you think it helps anything? I mean, it's showing me the error, but the error is not making sense. See, it says there is no constructor there which takes this. Alt enter shows hints. Create constructor int. What the hell? I tried 2.5, which was a double. That didn't even, I mean, it doesn't make sense at all, but I tried that too. And what does it say now? Okay, so let's do an alt enter. And it says create the constructor, and I already have a constructor. Okay, let's say, okay, do that for me. Okay, now what was different? I don't understand. Like, it was right there. Okay, so what does it do? It has written an empty method with double, which I already had. I have a double. Anything in it? What is it doing? Why is it not recognizing my constructor? I again have that error. No, I have, yeah, what? I don't understand. Is there a way of compiling only the first file in NetBeans? Okay, can we do this and go to run and say compile file? Oh, it's not even. Clean and build project. Come on, guys, put your heads together. Why is it not recognizing my constructor? Public void. Oh my God. There is no return type with a constructor. A constructor does not have a return type. I can't believe this. It is 4 o'clock. No. Okay. A constructor does not have a return type. Void is different from a return type. That's why it's not recognizing it. I can't believe this. Okay, now it will recognize it. There's my constructor. Keep in mind, a constructor does not have a return type, and void is a valid return type. Right? My mistake. Okay, so now let's go back to what we were doing. And I'm saying, so it's just recognizing it as a normal method. Okay, therefore it wasn't. Okay, now let's go back here. Let's save this. And now I want to show you something. Now it makes sense. See, as soon as I define my own constructor, it says you don't have the default anymore. And that's what happens in Java program. If you don't define a constructor, you have the default. If you define your own constructor, then you don't have the default. You will say, what if I need both? Put it back. Just add it. Just add it, right? So if you want the default also, now you will have to add it. And how do you add it? Simply as if you were adding any other constructor. So I'm going to overload my constructor. This constructor does not take any parameters and initializes the two numbers to 0. I'm sorry if I've confused you. The problem was that it did not have, it was not being recognized as a constructor. Okay, so how will you write it? As if you, nothing, don't write anything. That's what it does. Here, that's your default constructor back. You've got your default constructor back. Does nothing. But it does initialize them to 0, okay? It does initialize them to 0. So if you code your own constructor, which I did, notice I did it, then the default one is gone. It's no longer there. So if you want it, you have to code it. And I coded it. There it is, my default constructor. Now I can use both constructors. Okay, now I can use my first one and I can also use my second constructor. So this is called overloading of constructors. And you've seen in Java library, a class can have any number of constructors. Remember, we saw the J option pane when the class started. I think there were 10 of them. I could create a third silly one. I'll show you the third silly one. But it's up to you. You don't have to. But here is a third silly one. I'll have to do something with the parameters. Maybe I can do the silly one in this one. If you wanted to write a constructor that always set your number 1 to, I don't know, your favorite numbers, 5, and your set number 2 to your favorite number, whatever your favorite numbers are, you can even do this. You can create a default constructor that does not initialize them to 0, but sets them to some default values. You can do this. It's up to you what you want to do in your default constructor. So anytime your object gets created, number 1 will have 5 and number 2 will have 6. You can even do this. So but you have to supply a default constructor is the bottom line, because you're using it in your testing. If you don't want to supply it, don't use it. Right? Of course, that's the other option. If you don't want to supply it, don't use it. You can't use it. So I have supplied one, and instead of initializing them to 0, it will initialize it to 5 and 7 too. So you can give them some default values when the object is created. But in a calculator, when you buy a calculator from the store, does it come with any initial values? No. So therefore, it doesn't make sense to initialize. But you could. But logically, you won't. So when it comes, the two numbers actually are not even 0, but we'll assume it is. Okay? Right? So if you need a default constructor, please provide one. But I'll kind of comment it out, so hopefully things will not confuse you, but because I've said initialize to 0. But you could initialize to whatever you like. Right? Now go to your tester. See, there are no squigglies now. You can create an object with initial value 0 and it will work. You can create an object with any values you want and it will work. You'll say, how do you know it will work? Let's display the results again. Okay, now there is a little bit of problem. We'll have to change it. Not a big problem, but things change. To display results, please pass cal1 and please pass, and we'll change it. And again, call the display results with what? cal2. So an object is going, okay? And now you have the option that you can put them inside main. Now you don't have to put them outside main. You don't have to. And what will this take? It will take an object of type calculator coming to it. You can improve it. What do you want to call it? Cal? Just cal? And now everywhere where it was cal1, I'll make it cal. So when you call it with cal1, it will work with cal1. When you call it with cal2, it will work with cal2. I made it a generic method. What doesn't it like now? Oh, spelling is wrong. There. So now look at my display results. Display results is taking an object of type calculator and shows you the two inside the calculator, calls its add method, subtract method, multiply, and whatever. And how did I call it? I called it with cal1. So the first time it will work with cal1. I called it with cal2. Now it will work with cal2. So I've written the code once and I've called it twice. So I've changed my helper method a little. And that's what you do. That's how you learn how things can be done. No, since I am passing them as objects, I don't have to now declare them outside. So you learn all these small things as you go on. Oops, Control Z. And now you can declare them inside. Now you can make, okay, what was it? Control Z, there you are. You can take both of them. We'll have to remove the words static. You can make them local now. You can make them local. And once they are local, you can put static in front of it. Local variables are not static. Here, back to normal. So play with all these small things and you will learn what goes wrong and what can be done and what cannot be done. And that's how you will learn. And if you get stuck, ask for help. So I have two calculators. So now is main available. Can you see the whole main? Yeah, you can see the whole main. So let's only see the main. I created two local objects, cal1 and cal2. So I went and bought my calculator from Staples, and then Dan went and bought his calculator. This is called cal2. I do some math with my calculator. My two numbers are 0, and Dan does some with him, and his numbers are 2.5 and 3.5. We leave it simple because it's easy to do simple math. So instead of 2.5 and 3.5, 2 and 3 are just easy. Because we know 2 plus 3 is 5, 2 minus 3 is minus 1, 5 and 6 and 0.66. Just because the answers are easy. So now let's see. Does my calculator work properly? Does Dan's calculator work properly? And can I change the values inside my calculator? Of course I can. I have the set methods. And can Dan change them too? Sure, he can too. The only difference is he got some extra data in this, which is kind of useless, but whatever, right? Okay, let's run it. Extra data. There. See if you can see on your own terminals. Right? We have, this is me. First number, second number, sum, difference, product, and quotient. Now this is Dan's. 2, 3, 5, minus 1, 6, and 0.67. 0.2 is rounded the 0.66 to 0.6. And both our calculators are working. Both our calculators are working. If you want to make it a little more pretty, now you have to make it pretty at only one place. You can put a system out println here. Another 15 minutes, okay? Thank you for your patience in keeping quiet. And you know what? Your voices are kind of loud. You don't talk softly. You could without me knowing. Is it better? So readability becomes better. I just put some dashes so that you can see the two numbers. I can even start showing headings. Calculator 1, calculator 2 kind of stuff. I mean, it's all can be done. Now, so what have I done? I've tested my two constructors. I've tested my two getters. I've tested all my 4 methods. The only method I haven't tested is the set method. Let's test that too. If that works, I'm okay. Right? Let's test it. How will you test it? I have 5 minutes to test it. We'll continue with this if you have questions next week, but how will you test it? Okay, now let's